Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the World of AR. I'm your host, Eric, aka Gingerino. This week, we're going to have another short episode as there is just simply too much to comb through in the time frame when stuff came out about Avowed in recent news that I can't really take the time to go through it and also develop a full episode. At least that's just a choice I'm making, right? I also have a very busy weekend. I have some public speaking I have to do and things like that. So it's just a hectic schedule right now. So I am going to comb through all of the news regarding Avowed. For those of you who might be new to the show, if you're wondering what the heck's going on, this is a podcast about Avowed and Pillars of Eternity. We look at the lore of the world that all those games are set in. Avowed, as you may know, is about to come out next year, developed by Obsidian Entertainment. And at the time of this recording, there was a whole bunch of news at Gamescom about Avowed. So we have learned a lot. There's been a lot of news articles put out online. There's been some videos. There's an actual gameplay demo that was available at Gamescom. And then we got to see that gameplay on Friday, August 23rd. So there's just a ton of stuff. I don't even have everything collected yet. I haven't even read or watched everything yet. That's just how much there is. So at the time of this recording, if you are interested in Avowed or Pillars of Eternity and you wanting to get a lot of news on it, most things are at this point posted on the Avowed subreddit. That's where a lot of this is collected. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of things to look at. There is a demo of the gameplay where we actually get to see some characters and we get to see almost an entire side quest. We meet for the first time in Aoran history, we get to meet a Dawn godlike, as I call them, based off of the Pillars tabletop role-playing game, which is a godlike based off of the god Aethys. His name is Sargamas, and voiced by Matthew Mercer, which was great, especially since we got to hear Kai, our companion, who's voiced by, I can't remember his name, but he does Garrus Vicarian in the Mass Effect series. But aside from that, we also saw some other, not gameplay demos, but we got to read articles of journalists who have played the game firsthand, and they reported on their experiences. We talked about backgrounds in them. We learned pretty much all of the backgrounds that we have available. I know I'm going to play an Arcane Scholar when the game comes out, but there's a whole bunch of other ones to choose from. So a few articles with IGN, as well as some with Games Radar. We got to see a first look at an even more gnarly way that our character can look as a godlike character. There's a 30-minute podcast on the Iron Lords podcast, which talks directly about experiences with Avowed. There's also an article with a little video on it that talks about how many endings Avowed has, which apparently the number of slides, it's going to be a slideshow ending, just like Obsidian likes to do. The number of slides reach into the double digits. There's also an Xbox Wire article about two people who played Avowed at Gamescom, and they just had drastically different experiences because of how they approached it. All in all, I gotta say I'm very excited, and I want to do a full news episode, but I just don't have time this weekend to get all the information and form all that stuff, so I'm going to spend a lot of next week doing that and try to have something cobbled together for you. In the meantime, though, there is one thing that I do want to do on today's episode.
I'm curious. What exactly did you find there?
That I want to point out that gave me a little bit of brain food, and maybe it'll give some of you Pillars nerds out there some brain food as well. In the Xbox Wire article, there was a person there named Mike who had talked about their experience as a barbarian, and at one point they mentioned that they had a weapon called Drawn in Winter, which drew my attention because there are two weapons in Pillars of Eternity that exist that kind of follow that same idea. One is called Sheathed in Autumn, the other is called Drawn in Spring, and both of these have lore that are the exact same. Like if you read the associated description inside of these items, you'll see that they actually have the same lore in there. And it has to do with the living lands. And it gives me a little bit of hope that perhaps the lore we read about in this item description is actually in the game of Avowed. So I'm going to read that for you now. This is the item description for a unique dagger, Pillars of Eternity, called Drawn in Spring. A legend of the living lands speaks of a marvelous and dangerous garden watched over by 4 guardians: Northern Wind, Southern Gale, Western Sun, and Eastern Moon. To protect the garden from those who would disturb its wonders, and to protect hapless wanderers from the ravenous beasts and carnivorous plants within, the guardians diverted travelers with their respective domains: frigid and buffeting winds, glaring daylight, and the darkness of night. 3 would stand alert each season while 1 guardian rested. It is said that Western Sun summoned Drawn in Spring each year after awakening from winter slumber. So the reason that I find that exciting is because it talks about a really interesting place that could be in the Living Lands, this like secret place that is actually guarded almost by the lands itself, by these 4 guardians. And I'm wondering if you have to maybe collect these 4 weapons that you can use to then gain access to it, or if you just have to defeat these 4 bosses, perhaps. But it makes me hopeful for a secret like that being in Avowed. And there's certainly precedent set by Obsidian themselves for having a secret like that. Now, I might be reading into it too much. I don't want to give you guys this hope and expectation that it's gonna be in there. But this is just something I noticed when the guy mentioned that he had a weapon called Drawn in Winter. That was very similar to this way that we see Drawn in Spring. And especially since the lore has to do with the Living Lands, I'm like, this can't be a coincidence, right? So anyways, that's where I'm at with that. That's a little bit of lore. This is a lore program after all, so hopefully that was something that you were able to enjoy. But yeah, I'm not going to have a full episode out today. We're going to close out this episode pretty much right now, actually. I just wanted to reach out to you guys to let you know why there isn't a full-length episode. Again, it's just too much for me to comb through this weekend. I'm sorry if anyone's disappointed about that. I just full-time job, full-time everything, like a lot of people know. So I'm going to try to balance that stuff, and I think I'm just going to postpone a full episode until next week, where I can go through all of the news, comb through all the articles, watch the videos, talk with the guys on Avowedcast about what we did and did not see, and then hopefully I can round up some form of a summary or an overview for you next week, and we can see what lore there is and everything that was revealed, and move forward from there. For those who are concerned that I am going to start focusing only on Avowed and not going to remember the Pillars lore that we all started with, I want to put those worries to ease. I have no intention of abandoning the Pillars lore or still doing episodes just about stuff we see in Pillars of Eternity. In fact, there's going to be a shift once Avowed leaves to asking the lore that we see in Avowed what it has to do with Pillars of Eternity. I'm only addressing that here because some people have emailed me about that over the recent months, and I just thought it was worth mentioning that it's definitely still going to be a focus, and we're going to return to some of that lore as well. But I definitely want to honor the lore that we're seeing in this new game come out within this great world. And I gotta say, after everything I've seen for Avowed and its gameplay and the way they're presenting the narrative and the way the stories are going, I'm really excited because it feels like they really honored the world very well. In that brief little gameplay demo that we had on Friday, I got a feeling like even in this small side quest that is part of a grander world, and they seem to connect it and ground it in that. So for me, I'm excited to see the world, and I'm excited to get my hands on Avowed. But yeah, that's everything for today, everyone. Thanks for joining me on today's episode. No games I've been playing worth talking about. I watched an anime called Suzume, which is the first movie in the whole world to make me cry, but only because I'm a dad now. There's a whole scene in there where a child is very upset about some traumatic incidents. Don't worry, it's not like a trigger for anyone if you're interested or not. My wife and I, we just watch a lot of Studio Ghibli recently, and so Netflix was like, here, this is something you'll like, and boy howdy do we love it. So if you're into Studio Ghibli anime, perhaps Suzume will be one to check out. But yeah, that's all I've been up to lately. Thanks everyone for listening. I'm your host, Eric, aka Gingerino, and I'll see you guys next time.